Hello and good morning to yet another exciting edition of the final take with me, Seni MK Marina. In the studio today, we have two distinguished gentlemen in the passing of Madi Jobate, the Executive Director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. We also have Omar Saibo Kamara, who is the spokesperson of GALA, that is Gambians Against Looted Assets. In this one outside, we'll be talking about the last week anti-corruption protest led by Gala. We'll take a review of it and discuss the way forward. So wherever you are joining us, this is the final take. Major news around the world, and today's focus is on last week Gala anti-government protest. We will take a quick break, and when we come back, we will start this.
Tune into the final take with MK Marina every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.
Welcome back. Wherever you are joining us, this is the final take with me, Seni Marina. We are discussing the recent Gala anti-government protest. In my studio today is two gentlemen, very prominent, anti-corruption and human rights activists in the passing of Omar Saibo Kamara, the spokesperson of Gala, and Madi Jobate, a well-known and prominent human rights activist, and also the executive director of the Banjul-based Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. Gentlemen, welcome to the show today. I will start first with Mr. Omar Saibo Kamara. Ongul Madi will join us later in the show. Omar, welcome to the final take with me, Seni Marina.
Thank you very much, my brother and friend. Like we said yesterday on our conversation, finally, I am facing you on the final take after we had few other um, attempts, but it could not be successful. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am glad to have this conversation with you today, and I look forward to a truthful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omar. I'm glad to have you on this show. I know you have been on the spotlight. You have been the guy spearheading the Gala movement in your position as the spokesperson. Can you briefly say what motivated you to be involved in the fight against corruption in the Gambia, and how is your perspective roles have shaped your approach to this issue?
All right, thank you very much, Seni. What motivates me to join the fight against corruption in the Gambia is history, but also the continuous and persistent corruption allegations and scandals on a daily basis. If you know the history of the Gambia, you will understand that one of the most persistent issues that have ever retarded our governance system have been corruption from the First Republic to the Second Republic and the continuation of the Second Republic with a different president. What is fundamentally agreed on by both writers and political commentators is that corruption have been a consistent issue in our governance system. And what does this do is to deprive us from our fundamental basic rights, but also it kills the nation as a whole. 60 years of nationhood, no healthcare, better healthcare system, no better educational system, poor road networks, and many more saying have been what our state continue to face. If you talk about the 21st century, 2025, the basics of what other nations are not even thinking about is what Gambians are crying for. This what individually motivated me to be at a position of advocating for a free corrupt nation through ensuring that accountability, transparency, and the rule of law is what runs a state. But collectively, as Gala, the same thing is what inspired us. For far too long, that we have a country that few people will sit and decide what happens to the rest. A country where taxes are paid but doesn't reflect and impact the taxpayers. Monies and grants are borrowed and then aid and then granted on our name elsewhere, but comes to this country doesn't reflect on it. Agricultural sector is one part they send millions of dollars, but our agricultural sector cannot feed us. I'm saying if you reflect on these things and you truly know what it takes to have a free corrupt nation, like it happens in Singapore, like it happens in elsewhere, then you cannot sit back and watch a country being run by corrupt individuals that lack absolute lack of like integrity, honesty on how they run a state. On the basis of this, Gala emerged for on two bases. First, it was a movement, sorry, a moment, simply because something that triggers anger in the heart of Gambians. Saying I don't know, it only happened in the Gambia, but I'm not sure an investigative panel into corruption would have ever been investigated for corruption. That
Mr.
is historic. I once tell
Compose. Okay, go ahead.
I once said this to a professor of mine whilst
You can
we
go
were
ahead,
talking
Omar.
about governance in one of my class. I said to him that um, Gambia always make history for the bad reason. I remember I think we were talking about the FGM case, the FGM issue, and I told him Gambia only make history on bad reasons
Yeah.
because I cannot imagine a commission a commission like the Janet Commission after 22 years of corruption, embezzlement of state resources, seizure of people's property, and all that happened in this country, money laundering, financial crime that happened in this country. Gambians came together to say we want to set a precedent, Shani. We want to ensure that we investigate, prosecute, and hold people accountable for those crimes so that tomorrow somebody else come doesn't use us for a ride, doesn't steal from us, doesn't lie to us. Imagine today we are going back to investigate that commission. That is a historic moment. That's a historic, but for the wrong reason. Same. So that is why Gala came up to address that issue. But when Gala went out, May 8, 2025, become a turning point for civil participation in the history of this country. You are a journalist, but also you have been very, very involved in activism. You know what Gala have emerged to be after the 8th of May 2025. And then now we have moved from a moment to a movement, an anti-corruption movement that will continue to speak up to ensure that if there is anything less that can happen in this country is transparency, accountability, and a complete regard for the rule of law by the public officials.
Absolutely. Omar, it seems you having some background noise behind you, but I can definitely hear you So, Gala composed of young people from different backgrounds. This include activists, university students, ordinary young peoples in the streets of Basse, in the streets of Janjambure, in the streets of Bansang. So tell me, what impact does Wednesday protest have on the overall governance issue in Gambia?
See, it seems like I
Can
missed
you
that. I
hear me,
missed that
Omar?
part. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying the Gala anti-corruption protest has been a significant moment for the Gambia. Can you provide an overview of the protest objective and what you believe have been achieved, during the protest? this anti-government protests in recent.
All right. I think I've missed the final part too again, but uh, the anti-corruption protests have set Gambia on a new path. And one of our most
Yeah.
famous slogan is Gambia will not be the same again, Seni. Moving forward, Gambia will never be the same again if you come to civil awareness. Gambia will never be the same if you come to calling out for accountability and transparency. Gambia will never be the same again in how public officials run the state. Because um,
Mhm.
democracy is representation. And if
Mhm.
representation fails, what takes
Right.
over is participation. And one of the key to participation is taking the streets and demanding for what is right. And that is exactly what we have done on the 8th of May. This is what we have done on Wednesday,
Mhm.
and saying this is what we will continue to do until every Gambian understand that Gambians are not poor and the Gambia is not poor but poorly managed by public officials that seek to be corrupt. We'll make them understand that Gambia can feed itself. It's just because we have poor leadership that doesn't think inward. We will ensure that Gambian in Basse at the farm understand that his groundnut worth dollars,
Mhm.
but it's because of few people that
Mhm.
deny him that right. A gardener in Sarebojo must understand that her vegetables cannot be spoiled, not because we don't have the opportunity to give her a storage store, it's because they are not interested in uplifting the ordinary Gambian. They are not interested in ensuring that the ordinary Gambian feel their tax that they pay. But so the same, the civil space have been open, and then two campaigns have been run in this country that corruption must end. And public officials, the president, cannot continue to take excuses for corruption. And Gala will not be a political party. We will not tell Gambians who to elect as president or minister. We will not tell Gambians what to do on election. But we will make sure every Gambian from Carton to Koina understand how and why corruption
Mhm.
kills and why they should pay attention to any leader that perpetuate corruption. We are going to take the streets, but also we're going to we're going to do citizen assemblies where we go to every corner in this country, to the ghettos, to the bankabas, to the hospitals,
Mhm.
to the schools, to ensure
Mhm.
that there is a collective consensus that corruption
Mhm.
is unacceptable and corruption can never be accepted because corruption is where Gambia is where we are today as a country, not because we don't have the resources, not because we don't have the capital, not because we cannot do it. It's simply because whenever we elect public officials, they forget about the poor people
Mhm.
that elect them, and then they forget about that the ballot box have been to Sare Bojo, but they cannot go to Sare Bojo to listen to their problems. They forget to that the ballot box have gone to Bolibanda, but they cannot go to Bolibanda. All what they do is, in fact, saying we build hospitals in this country and name it after our parents, but we don't even trust in those facilities. That shows you something. That imagine you leave Alkama time to go and do a Facebook Live without a media house.
Mhm.
What does that represent? That is an insult to your
Mhm.
media house. The same thing happened. You must lack self-confidence. You must
Mhm.
lack self-confidence in yourself for you to
Right.
leave your establishment for another establishment. So we all understand that they know what they are doing, but they are deliberately doing it at the expense of the poor taxpayers' money because we are poor. And also say the one thing why Africa corruption is hard to eradicate. Not because there is a lot to do, but because there's a mindset the politicians have that they can only fall, only the poor can fall for them in election time because they bring them back of rice at
Right.
that time
Mhm.
and then they are hungry and then they embrace that and then they manipulate them. That's why they don't want to eradicate poverty. Not they don't know the strategies to eradicate poverty, but it's poverty that keep them in power. If that's not the case, then if you read the first president of Singapore, Lin spoke from third world to fourth world. And then what he has done first is to kill corruption, invest in human capital, invest in development trajectories. And if you read the prime minister, the then prime minister, after the COVID-19 report on Singapore, let's tackle the challenges together, he made mention of something that is very fundamental in that article, saying today 80% to 85% of Singaporeans are living in rooms that are state provided accommodations for them, well-rounded accommodations for them. In the Gambia, our lands have been given to investors. People don't even have land. Each minister have 10 lands. Anytime the land act is favoring, is known that there's a land act because the minister need a land, not because an ordinary Gambian who doesn't have a land. And then this is what we need to break. We need to dismantle the elitist attitude into our governance system, because governance is supposed to serve the people, the grassroots. People's life must change, and that's why they pay taxes. And then if anything stands between us and the taxes, we are going to dismantle that, but our taxes must benefit us.
Okay. Many thanks, Mr. Omar. Your co-panelist, Madi Jobate, is joining us. So if Madi is in, we will take him a little bit back, and then Mr. Madi, welcome to the final take. Mr. Jobate, are you there? Can you hear me?
Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be with Comrade Omar, you know.
Mr. Jobate is trying to, yeah, you can hear me. Can you adjust your camera a little bit?
But I think I'm not in the show yet.
So that we can see your full face. We just see
I think I'm still in the backstage.
A nice, how to call it, glasses. So if you can move your, yeah, if you can move your, there you go. There you go. Welcome to the final take. We just take off with Mr. Omar Saibo Kamara. We're talking about the massive anti-corruption protest that rocked Banjul, with thousands of young people from all walks of life joining their crusade to make the Gambia a free corruption country. Madi, you have been at the forefront, although you are not a bona fide member of GAL, but you support what they do, you encourage what they do, and you were right at Westfield protesting with these young people. Mr. Madi, what's your take on the Gala anti-government protest, anti-corruption protest, and what's the way forward from a human rights perspective and accountability?
Yeah, thank you. The greatest threat to human rights is corruption, because all human rights violations are as a result of corruption. Corruption in terms of acquiring wealth, corruption in terms of maintaining oneself in power, you know, and corruption in terms of maintaining the privileges and powers, incentives that one enjoys and want to continue to perpetuate or to enjoy those privileges and incentives by any means. So every human rights violation you look at anywhere in the world, when you interrogate, you will realize come as a result of corruption. And the Gambia has reached a point, Sini, where corruption has become uncontrolled, widespread, encouraged, and rewarded, you know, by the president and his government, President Barrow and his government. And corruption is a threat to human rights, not just threat to human rights, it's a threat to peace and stability of any society. And so all societies, all individuals in any society should stand up to fight corruption, because corruption undermines the rule of law. You know, it is a disregard of the rule of law. It constitutes abuse of power. So everything and anything wrong is about corruption. And so when we allow corruption to perpetuate, to persist, we are effectively allowing injustice, violations, violence, and discrimination and so on to persist in society. So that for me, Gala is on the right track. We need more people to join to support Gala, and every government should become Gala. What they are doing, this is the way to combat corruption, that is to go on the offensive, because it is very clear in their oath of office, in their terms of reference, according to the law, that public institutions should abide by the law. All right. To abide by the law in the decisions and actions they make, in the services that they deliver, but in the management of the resources and the affairs of the society, because
It seems we lost Madi Jobada there. Omar, if you are there, can you hear me?
Yes, Sini, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Omar, can you hear me? Yeah, it seems you was already on the. You hear me, right? Okay, Mr. As the as the spokesperson for Gala, what can you walk us through the key outcomes of the protest? Were there any specific success or challenges that stood out during the protest?
I will start. I will start with the challenges. Of course, a movement like Gala, emerging in a premature democracy like
Yeah,
Banjul, is obviously gonna face challenges. And one of the challenges that Gala face
right.
is backlash from the people that Gala speaks for. Um, the critics, which I always say that Gala is not immune to criticism. People will emerge from everywhere and they
Right.
criticize Gala as a team, but also they spot individuals in Gala and then they criticize them that they are not clean, they are not this, they are also corrupt. You see, Cheney, I want to make one thing when people reach out to me and say, but people are saying, I said, Gala is not Alkama Times or Fact Check Center or government where we hire or appoint. Gala is
Mhm.
an open people's
It's a people
movement.
movement.
If somebody is MPP or UDP or NRP or DOI but feel like Gala is the people's movement and then decide to join Gala, what can we do about that? And that's what movements are all over the world. Movements don't restrict who can join them. Movement bring a collective of people with divergent views and perspectives and ideologies for a common goal. So that's one of the challenges we face. The backlashes
Do
from that.
not
People,
on you are. It embrace everyone, right?
yes, like I said, if even if President Barrow wants to be a member of Gala, we will welcome him with open arms. What Gala doesn't accept is that we don't hate anybody. We hate corruption. We don't hate anybody. We hate mismanagement of state resources. What we hate is not the person, it's the dishonesty in the person. And if we can break that up, we are open to anybody and anyone that believes in the collective voices and consent of Gambia to liberate us from corruption, bad leadership, and terrible governance. You are welcome. And that is one. Another challenge. Another challenge we will see right now, saying this is not the challenge we face before the protest, but I must acknowledge that one of the challenges we are facing right now is especially our team members that work in the private sector. A lot of them have been receiving threat warning letters for dismissal. And today, unfortunately, I will not call the name and also the company because we have not discussed whether we want to employ it. One of the companies have to fire somebody through a mere text message because they're passing protest. And I remember this is the message I sent to the group this afternoon that all of us should expect a lot of
Wow.
this because we stand with the truth. If you stand with the truth in a premature democracy, in a country where people are not very too honest, saying these are the things you must expect. But either ways, we remain as Gala and we remain as the voices of the Gambian people to end corruption, self-perpetuated rule, and dishonesty in our governance system. So the success story is this.
Okay.
This is the second time.
Okay, go ahead.
The success story is this. You have been into the civil space in this country for quite a long time. And Comrade Madi have been in the civil space for quite a long time. You can correct me
Right.
if I'm wrong. But through readings and an interaction, I am not sure since independence there have ever been a massive anti-corruption protest of this magnitude. Probably there are protests
Right.
in intersections, there are protests in few things, but a massive where young, old, women, businessmen, artists, activists,
Rich,
government
poor.
officials, even police officers come together to stage a protest of this magnitude probably have never happened in the history of that country. That's the success story. I know what that takes. It has launched a new dynamics of civil engagement and participation in this country. And I'll end by saying, Sedi, Gala have launched something that Gambia will never be the same again if you come to accountability, transparency, and regard for the rule of law.
Absolutely. Many thanks for those joining us. This is the final take with me, Seni Marena. In the studio today, I have two prominent human rights activists. Madi Jobate, a well-known, I'll call him a freedom fighter, the executive director of Banjul-based Edward Francis Small Center for Right and Justice. Mr. Jobate, from human rights perspective, how do you assess the government response to the Gala protests? Were there any action or reaction that either encourage or concern you as a human rights guy demanding accountability from all government institutions?
Yeah, so the concern is indeed the restriction provided for that protest. That is to limit it within a space that's like 100 meters and then within a period that is about 2 hours. For a national protest, and as Omar said, probably the biggest national protest against corruption, I found that pretty unpleasant. But I must say the police appeared in a more responsible way this time by deploying general duty police officers and traffic police, and not the riot
Instead
gear
of the PIU.
paramilitary. Yes, because I mean, protest is a normal thing in democracy. And in Gambia, the history is there that Gambians are not violent when it comes to protests. They are not criminals when it comes to protests. So there was no justification to bring armed paramilitary police, very early at the protest scene. That is provocation. So it was a good thing that this time around they avoided that, and the evidence is there for everyone to see that it went peacefully. Protesters acted very responsibly and peacefully. But then our police must recognize that they are not the police of the government. That is, they are not there to defend government, to shield government. The police are human rights protectors. That is to make sure citizens exercise their human rights. And one of those is to protest, demonstrate. So that the role of the police is to provide all the necessary security to make sure this right is exercised and enjoyed to the full. Now, the attitude of the police is that they restrict it as if they are shielding the government, from accountability, as if they want to undermine the effectiveness, the vibrancy of the protest. And the police should not do that. The police should not stand between the people and their government. It is part of the governance of this country that citizens hold the state to account in many, many ways, including elections, including protests, including going to court, including, freedom of expression, as we are doing, freedom of the media, and so on. And in all of these cases, the police should not put any restrictions that is not in the law and that is undemocratic. All right, and this has been the practice, and I hope in future, if citizens want to protest in Banjul, people have a right to protest in Banjul for a whole day, for 1 week, for 1 month. This is the right of the citizens. But to send citizens to the bush or to restrict them, in a space of 100 meters or within a space of 2 hours is undemocratic and it's not based on law. But as I said, what we saw with the gala protest on Wednesday, in terms of the presence of the police, I think that is a positive sign, and we hope they will continue with that as we move on.
Okay. Okay. Many thanks, Madi. Omar, let me come to you. What was the public response to the protest? Did it resonate with Gambians, both home and in the diaspora? And also, and how has it influenced the broader conversation about corruption now? Because when you look at it many years ago, these are areas that people hardly talk about, because corruption is so prevalent in the Gambia that even if we are not corrupt, people will encourage you to be corrupt. So what has this protest achieved? Has it improved broader conversation about corruption right now in the country? Mr. Kamara, your mic is on mute. Can you unmute your mic?
Yes. So sorry about that.
Your mic
I said yes.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
I said yes that the gala protest has injected a new dynamics into civil participation, like I said. And then the conversation around corruption have been here since the First Republic. Um, Economic investment have been there. And I think one thing Gala have succeeded in, we could have done this earlier than today. The difference is the language we have been speaking and the language Gala speaks. You see, Seni, across this country, Gambians find Gala as their voice and their consent and a movement that is carrying our collective spirit to salvage that country. And then for me, a spokesperson, but for anybody in Gala, the language is very simple. That Gambia is not poor. You are poor today because of corruption. So I tell people that we should not die. We are dying because of poor healthcare system. You see, so the messaging for me, what stands out in the Gala case is how they carry the collective voices in very simple but still appealing and convincing messaging that this is what Gambia needs today, and it will save us, right? And then this is how Gala moved on. But also, I think what triggers the whole of this for people to understand is the fact that everybody become very interested and angry because you see, in my preamble, I said it. If this was just a commission, a commission, we will understand. If this just a corruption that is normal, we will understand. Say, I'm telling you, I have read governance at my master's level, and I've read about a lot of countries and their governance system and then the kind of corruption that happened there, the economic crisis. But I've never seen yet a commission as serious or supposedly to be serious as the Jana Commission being investigated. So if you explain that to a market vendor, a farmer in Boraba, a gardener in Bansan, they tend to understand that truly our public officers are playing with us. After we kick Jami out of this place with high corruption allegations and scandals. Now investigate that you turned out to be more corrupt probably. That is unacceptable. And then these are the messages that Gala sent. And this is the perspective in what we are. That I tell my mom, look, we are not poor. You are only poor because your resources in this country, your tax is poorly managed. You are not supposed to go to the pharmacy to buy medicine. Your hospitals should have adequate medicine for you. You are not having that because they are buying $12 million Prados and driving them all over this country. Right? You are not supposed to, your groundnut is supposed to the soul and then benefit you, but it's not because they don't care about you because you are poor. They care about the elites and then the monies they take. So I tell them, we tell them that the aids and grants borrowed on your behalf is not reflecting your lives. So we as Gala are speaking the people's language, the language the people understand. And it's where we are uniquely standing out as if not. I as a political scientist, probably I and Uncle Madi will do an academic work on this, but probably in the history of fighting corruption, Ghana may stand out not just in the Gambia but beyond in the African level. Because the unique nature and emergence
Absolutely.
of Ghana will remain
Absolutely.
as a historic moment for movements in fighting against corruption, bad leadership, and governance in Africa. Hopefully, yes.
Absolutely. Saibo, yeah, thank you for that because Gala will definitely be used as a case study in other African countries because of the success they have in this past couple of months. Just yesterday, I saw been asked in their exam to write about the impact or to write about Gala protests in their final year exams. That shows to you that, Gala is Gala is those in power accountable. Many thanks for that brilliant answer. I will go to Madi Jobate. Mr. Jobate, protests often face risk, including pushback from authorities or public cry. What lesson can activists learn from the Gala protests to strengthen future anti-corruption efforts in the country?
Yeah, so as you noted, protest face risks. That is true in many forms. It
Yeah.
is the nature of governments, across the world, for example, to infiltrate protests with criminals in order to turn it into violence. So they have the
Yeah.
opportunity to clamp down on the
And
protests and
suppress.
even incriminate protest organizers and so on. But again, it is up to protesters, the organizers particularly, how well organized they are, because carrying out a protest requires a lot of preparation, um, so that you establish certain structures and systems, tools in place to enable you to, control the crowd, the message, but also watch out to make sure you are monitoring the protest to prevent, violence or disruption from any side, whether protesters themselves or the state, I mean, the police and so on. Yeah, so I think what we've seen in the Gala protest on Wednesday, apparently it looks like such necessary preparation were made. I've even seen, protesters carrying a trash bag to make sure they collect all the trash that is coming out of the protest. So, which is a very positive and a first-time thing I have seen in a Gambian protest. Yeah, so it is to continue this. But I mean, Sally, if you allow me, just to buttress the point Omar was making in terms of the of corruption, the impact of corruption, and understanding corruption. And as he rightly said, Gambia is not a poor country. Gambians have been impoverished, by
Mhm.
the officials who
Our
occupy the
resources are
state.
poorly managed. Mhm.
It's all part of that, by the officials who occupy the state, not from 2017 and not from just 1994, but all the way back to 1965. I have said it in many, many places that the Gambia government, the Gambian state, is a fraud, it's a scam, because it exists for those who work in that state. And in fact, the higher you are up in that state, you benefit more from the resources of the people than you give back to the people. We are not having lack of electricity or lack of healthcare, adequate healthcare or ferry services, roads and so on, because we don't have resources. You hear this narrative people make that the Gambia is a poor country. And certainly the Gambia is not a poor country, whether in terms of natural resources or whether in terms of financial resources. Gambia is not a poor country. And I always like to give this example to say, look, Jammeh bought a tent, for $88 million from Morocco, which is standing at State House, an air-conditioned tent that they use only for their ceremonies. Now, in a country like the Gambia, why would you buy a tent for 88 million, given the state of our hospitals, healthcare, education, utilities, roads, and so on and so forth? But what that indicates is how public officials utilize, public wealth to go and put it into things that serves their convenience. So whether it is a tent or a vehicle or an air ticket or some allowance of all kinds, they have a justification for all of this, that they use public resources to provide it for themselves and not for the people. Otherwise, I have always said, given the revenue sources of this country, from our taxes to loans and grants and so on, the Gambia has enough money from Banjul to Fatoto to provide air-conditioned hospital wards, hospitals, health facilities equipped with the latest, the wealth, all right, to provide. To provide schools with classrooms equipped with air conditioners, equipped with internet, equipped with television and other modern teaching gadgets from Banjul to Toto. All of these are provided. We have the resources to provide electricity and water supply for every village and town and city and home in this country. All right, with street lights, with drainage systems in place, with traffic lights, and so on. All of these resources are here, but being plundered by public resources, public officials. All right, this is the reality. This is why there is poverty in this country. This is why there is high, unemployment rate. This is why the economy is so mismanaged that it is leading to a high cost of living. This is why there's so much deprivation, resulting into the backway syndrome, drugs abuse, crime, and so on. It is all simply because public wealth is being mismanaged by those in public office because they want to serve their own interests, all right, beyond and above the public interest for which they are put into public office in the first place. And this message, as Omar said, we need to take this message to that woman selling, get herself in front of LK, secondary school. We need to send this message to the farmers, all the way in Boraba or Mankamakunda, and in Kanilai. Yes, we need to send this message, to all the farmers, the women farmers selling cashew from Esau, from Bara, who cross to come and sell their cashew nuts at traffic lights. We need to send this message to our, ground farmers in Balangar, as well as our, cotton farmers in the URR and everywhere in this country, that Gambia is not a poor country, all right? We have the necessary natural resources and we have the necessary financial resources, but they are either, in terms of our natural resources, plundered, all right, untapped. You look at River Gambia, it is hugely untapped. But then you look at our land resources, our natural resources, whether our fishes, they have been exploited, all right, where public officials take people's lands from families, from communities, and they call it reserve land, tourism development area, or layout, and then go back around to distribute that to themselves, all right, and then sell it to business people that are connected to them and give it to politicians and family members and cronies that are connected to them. This is and then the people who own those lands that they call tourism development area, because those lands did not drop from the sky. Those lands, people own them as their traditional lands, as their lands, of their families and communities. But they take them and distribute them among themselves. And where people even go and build, and they come and say, this is a layout, like in Salaji, and they go and demolish people's houses. But then they will come back in those layouts, they distribute land to permanent secretaries, to ministers, to directors, to National Assembly members, and other government officials. So this injustice, this corruption is what is in this country for the past 60 years. And what Ghana is doing is the solution. we have to go on the offensive because Mr. Barrow, all right, or Siri Keta, all right, or Fabakar Tomonjata, okay, or Daura Jallo, or Ismail Sise, they have no greater birthright, all right? They have no greater ownership or greater legitimacy to the land and the resources of the Gambia more than Seni Marena or Mali Jobate or Omar Kamara or Fatou Njai or Buba Sabure or Peter Gomez or Mary Njai or anyone across this country. All right? And that is what has to stop. That, the law
Yeah.
is there and they cannot abuse the law, disregard the law, and then, personalize state resources, personalize public wealth to serve themselves. This injustice is what is here. Look at the Jame assets. Jame, this is what Jame did. Went out to go and take people's lands as their family members, as communities, as businesses, all right? Take people's lands by force, all right? Take our money from central bank and go and buy all sorts of things, all right? And then we remove Jame, set up a Jame commission, and those resources belong to the Gambian people. Instead of coming to the Gambian people, we see the Barrow regime also come and loot public resources just like that. Okay? That has to stop. We have to confront this. All right? And they looted it, all right? And they refused to say anything until it had to take an investigative journalist in the Republic to expose their looting and disregard of the law and their corruption. This is why we have Gala. This is why we are here. All right? So for that matter, citizens have to confront these people. All right? I mean, it is unjust, it's unpatriotic, it's immoral, and it is criminal. So this criminality is what the Gambia government stands on. This blatant criminality is what fuels the Gambia government. That is why they encourage corruption, they reward corruption. You look at the Jana Commission, even the individuals mentioned in the Jana Commission to be banned for corruption, Barrow has brought them back into State House. All right? Nothing is more blatantly disrespectful, disrespectful and criminal.
Absolutely.
Than what Barrow is doing to the Gambian people. And he doesn't have any greater birthright, okay, to the Gambia, to the resources of the Gambia, more than any individual Gambian. If anything, he is under oath, he is by law required to serve Gambian people and not to plunder and loot Gambians as he is doing and his government. They must be confronted.
Absolutely. They must be confronted. Uncle Madi, that term is strong, and you say it should be confrontational. Are you in a confrontational, meaning citizens have to come and demand accountability? Many thanks for that brilliant answer. This is a joint question, but I will start it with Mr. Omar Saibu. How do you both view the role of young people and grassroots organizations in sustainment of anti-corruption campaign? Are there any specific strategies that work well during the Gala protest in terms of grassroots organization? Omar?
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Sheni. And one of the most fundamental things to sustain a young people-led anti-corruption movement is, you see, if you look at our mobilization this strategy, one of the things we did was to ensure that everybody is Gala and everybody see themselves in Gala. Let's say, for example, university students at the protest came to me and say they were moved by the message that says that I am a university student. I study hard, but I graduate to zero opportunity to jobs. So you see, first what we need to do is for young people to understand their purpose. Like Madi will always quote Frank Fanon that says every generation have its mission. It's either you fulfill it or you fail. And then fundamentally, we must make young people understand that we have a role to play in the society. And our role in society is not to just clap for the president. If you want to support the president, you support the president. If you want to support opposition, you support opposition. If you don't want to support anybody, that's fine. But fundamentally, wherever position you take, what is more important is what role do you play to create an equitable, just, and progressive society, regardless of your color, regardless of your affiliation. That rule must be disseminated clear, and explained to young people. Because at the end of the day, change doesn't happen from the blue. And then for change to happen, young people must first be the agents of change and accountability. Because the 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 thing is, we are here today because the past generation probably failed to take ownership of their own destiny, and then they allow President Jawara, President Jame to do what they want to do. Because probably we don't also understand civil rights at that time because the civil space was very close. But today, if there is anybody that is more affected in this country, it's young people. Because it's young, because understand, you also need to understand the local dynamic, the family dynamic. Let's say, for example, for me, if I lack job today, it boils down to how will I feed my mom, my siblings, my family, for example. So because you become that face of the family, most of the young people that are struggling are the ones that are breadwinners in their family. Their parents want them to work to return back to them. They go to university because they want to get a job. But also, in fact, young people are the most educated. And I said this saying that the few young people that tend to paint gala and then call us names, and I see if your education is to be at any point meaningful, is to serve the people. If that doesn't happen, it does not reflect. So young people's role is very, very fundamental for today and for the future. If we don't create the future tomorrow, you know what will happen to us? We fall to be who we fight for today. I will not make names, but I'm sure most of these people that are today involved in corruption scandal, perpetuating corruption, self-perpetuating rule, and sitting at state house, driving Prado vehicles. When they were at their young age, probably they were keeping quiet, they don't care. And their consent cannot be clear. They have not established that sense of credibility and integrity to ensure that accountability is a must. Because accountability is not a one-day thing. Honesty is built on saying today, regardless of anything. If I hold public office tomorrow, I'll think of how many times I protested against public officers for being corrupt. Probably that will be a motivating factor to stay ideal, honest, and deliver service to the people. And that's how the young people should think around. That we are on the streets today, in the universities today, at the ghettos today, and tomorrow we are in state house. And the road to state house began from the ghetto, from the university class, from the high school class, from where we are, and from the streets we occupy on Wednesday. And then this is the message that should carry young people. This is the message that the young people should be able to do. But also, to maintain the civil space, the young people must take part beyond protest in everyday life of this country. We cannot leave our affairs to politicians, especially when they have proved to us numbers without times that they are corrupt, they are not honest enough to deliver services to us. Because at the end of the day, in Singapore, in South Korea, that we are supposed to be third world countries, but probably are progressively today to fourth world countries, and our economy, their GDP, they are all booming. It's not God sent. Since Singapore seceded from Malaysia, it has transformed itself from a third world island nation, Seni, to a more vibrant state with the highest GDP in this world. And do you think that it's God that sent Angel Jibril there? No.
No.
God did not send Angel Jibril to Singapore. It's the people of Singapore that look inwards,
that rise
forward thinking, and know that they have they, yes, that rise of, and then they have a collective responsibility to ensure that they don't fail themselves, but they don't fail the following generation that will come. And that's why today everybody lives in a decent life, in a dignified life in Singapore, high quality of healthcare system and high educational system. Because one of the issues they focus on was trainings and education. Because today their workforce is carried by the quality of education they offer.
Yeah.
So I don't know, the young people need to understand all of these things. And if we go to school, we are educated. Saying, I never want to say this, but I think it's high time I also say this so that some young other people know that some of us are on the streets not because we just want to be on the street. Because I
Absolutely.
find somebody calling me and saying we are jobless young people on the streets. I've got my masters. I could have stayed in Europe and mind my business. Saying, I will say this on camera today for the purpose of those people that I
Mhm.
got visas to go to travel to the other parts of the world and go and
Mhm.
sit down there and mind my business. And you think I'm on the
Yeah.
street just because I want to be there?
Like any
Because
other young people from the Gambia. Hmm.
exactly. So you think I'm just going, because at the end of the day, for me, how young people should think is this. If I go to sit in America or go back to Florence in the next 60 years after retirement, I come back to the Gambia saying my car will be on the same porta if it rains. I will go to the same hospital with only prices a month. Probably my children will go to the same education, with the same schools with poor education system, with poor drainage. If I sit there for 60 years and come back and nothing have changed, what is the purpose of sitting there? What is the purpose of my money if you cannot even give me quality services?
Right.
So I think this is how young people should think. And if young people think this way, saying we'll be able to carry our collective voices against corruption in the Gambia.
Absolutely. Mr. Saibo, we are running out of time, and then the conversation is getting interesting. I will save to Madi Jobate and then ask him this question. Mr. Jobate, as a human rights advocate, systematic change you want to believe are necessary to tackle corruption effectively in the Gambia, and how can institutions like your center, contribute to this conversation or this initiative and efforts?
Yeah, I think the approach it's two prong approach. One is for the EF Small Center like Gala to go on the offensive, and the offensive here is to go on protests as they are doing, to go to use litigation, going to court, to name and shame, to expose, partner with journalists like yourself,
Mhm.
investigative journalists to bring out these issues. And the other approach is, to go to the people, because ultimately the people are the ones to liberate themselves. All
Mhm.
right. We need to go to the people to empower the people,
Yeah.
with
Right.
civic education, with information analysis about corruption, so that they understand the dynamics, the nature of their poverty, of poor roads, poor services, and all the things that are in the society to understand. Because, I mean, one reason why, this country has been like this since 1965, sinning, is because public officials do not face any consequence. All right. They face no accountability for the things they do or do not do, for their decisions and actions, or lack of decisions or actions. So they face no consequence whatsoever, because the public does not fully comprehend how to participate in the governance of their society, to ensure that the rule of law is upheld and things like that. All right.
In
So
the
because
fight.
of that, what has been the missing link in our governance and development process
Mhm.
has been transparency and accountability. And because of that, corruption is rife, underperformance is rife, poor services, and all this abuse and so on taking place. So two things is to confront the institutions that are perpetuating the corruption and the abuse of office and so on, the post service delivery, what Gala is doing and what we intend to do as Edward Francis Moore Center. But the other one is now to also empower the people, so that the people at the end of the day, they make the decisions in terms of elections. But also, when Gala calls for protests, all right, we see many more people would come, and many more people in their own localities, in their villages and towns and communities will stand up to demand for services and so on. So, to ensure good governance, therefore, in this country, that is to ensure there is transparency and accountability, it has to be a popular movement. And this popular movement has to be on the basis of an offensive. So there has to be an offensive, but at the same time, there has to be that civic education as I'm talking about. So these are the two approaches, I think, where we are right now. Because, Tenny, I can tell you, I have, for the past 35 years, there is nowhere in this country I have not gone to for a meeting. From State House in Banjul to Brikama Area Council, Karaba Beach Hotel, Tendaba Camp, Sindola Camp, all right, Transgambia Lodge. I mean, every area council. I have been there for a meeting about policy, about budget, about planning this or planning that. I've been monitoring meetings and so on. And, I have seen the resources that have been quoted in the national budget every year, the loans and grants quoted every year, all right, the initiatives, the projects created every year. And then we go down 60 years. And then you see the poverty in this country, the deprivation in this country, the backwardness in this country. What is the reason? It is not because the resources are not there. It is not that the knowledge and skills are not available. It is not that the resources, natural resources, are not there. It is simply because public officials do not want to do their work. They want to be paid, they want to be pampered, enjoy all the privileges and benefits, but they don't want to perform. And, Omar mentioned Singapore, which gained independence in 1965. And in Lee Kuan Yew's book, From First World...
Same year with the Gambia.
Yeah, Third World to the First World. By 1965, Lee Kuan Yew, it became clear to him, all right, this tiny, hapless, poor country, all right, multicultural, multi-religious, in the shadows of big nations all around it. If this country, Singapore, is going to make it, he said there has to be meritocracy. That people who hold public office should merit it, have the qualifications. He said we have to invest in the people, in the education of the people, in building the skills of the people, in building the values of the people. And then lastly, he said there has to be accountability. Accountability against corruption, accountability for performance, accountability for delivery. These are the three pillars Lee Kuan Yew carried Singapore. By 1990, Singapore is already in the first world category. By 1990. In 1990, Gambia was classified as a highly indebted poor country, HIPC, by the World Bank and the IMF. What is the difference? The only difference is Singapore had a leadership that was ready to invest in the people, that was ready to uphold the law and the values, and that was ready to make sure they deliver. In our case, our leaders, our public officials, they were ready to just occupy public office and plunder public wealth every day. And that bastardization of our resources, of our republic, that is what has to stop now. That is the only reason, and that is why we got to go on the offensive, all right? Because they are no better Gambians than anybody, and they have a greater responsibility because out of 2 million people, the people selected them to give them all the benefits. And one minister is driving a vehicle costing $12 million just to drive from your home in Brusubi or Brikama or Sanyang to go to Banjul every day. A $12 million, fully air conditioned, fully fueled. We even give you another vehicle for your family. You understand? And why can't you deliver? Which ministry is delivering in this country? It is not happening. So the citizens have to say enough is enough. All right?
Yeah, utility
the
for your family.
in this government, the underperformance in this government, the arrogance of public officials, it has to stop. That is why I'm saying we have to go on the offensive. All right? The law, that is what the law provides. We have to confront corruption, criminality, arrogance head on. And that is what citizens got to do. That is the only solution.
Absolutely. We have to confront this system to demand accountability. Rightly put there, Madi Jobate. Many thanks for that brilliant answer to my question. Omar, we are just left with 10 more minutes. The conversation is interesting because having two of you all very passionate about accountability, fighting corruption, we can just have a long hour discussion. But I know as time goes on, we'll be getting frequent conversation. Should also sponsor a program basically on accountability, and corruption to raise awareness about this very important issue. But coming to my question, Omar, corruption often involve powerful actors who resist accountability. How can civil society, the media, and other ordinary citizens work together to ensure transparency and justice without fear of retaliation? Because Gambia has gone through a very brutal, dark history. 25, 22 years of brutal dictatorship. Fear is still there. But with Gala taking the lead, people have now, removed that fear of hitting the
Yes,
streets, to demand accountability.
I think, Seni, um, these days I've been reading Alaji Sedi Barrow's book, The Dictator in Us. Um, no leader is powerful in the eye of the people because the people handed over that power to them. And it's through their voice and collective votes
Yeah,
that
you.
they say, we want you in that office,
Okay.
right? So I don't see, I don't see when people say these people are powerful, you should not challenge them. You see, Kenny, civil society, you see, we are not talking about government, we are talking about supranational organizations. Let's say, for example, the EU today. If the EU
Yeah.
sits at the EU Parliament and making decisions for Europe, they don't think about anything. They think about Friday for the futures before they take any action on climate issues. They think about another movement, another civil
Mhm.
society's interest. Because I don't they don't sit in the table, but their voices are always in the table. And that is why Europe is now, if you democracy experts in Europe are collectively agreeing that Europe is moving from representative democracy to participatory democracy.
Mm.
Because public officers,
Democracy.
if President Barrow sits at State House, at the cabinet, and want to make any decision, his mind should reflect what he will face the following morning if that decision goes right or wrong. And that is not voluntary. That is the approach and the manner in which citizens take up accountability and how they held their leaders accountable. Because we cannot create them as demigods. They are not. They are
Right.
human beings. President Barrow is like me and you. President Barrow is from Mankamankuda and from Bansan. So we are all the same people from the same society. Literally, probably we have been going to the
Yeah.
same schools and the same hospitals. So he's not extraordinary. He's only giving authority through our collective voice that he must exercise with our will and our aspirations. So civil society and activists in the Gambia continue to play a big role. But one thing I must be honest here today, that I will agree with my civil society are leaving the road. You see, the fundamental role of civil society is to create that environment where citizens are aware and where they step in, where an ordinary citizen, a farmer in Bansan cannot say, or in Makati cannot say, the civil society speak that for them. Civil society job is just beyond the monetary project hunting, you know. And then our civil society is becoming or turning very confusing in this country. You don't even know where the civil society stand. Saying, to be honest, I am one of them, but I will say this. This is my perspective, right? That civil society at some point you don't know where they stand. Because at the end of the day, we are too much into money and projects that give us finances, that the actuality of ensuring that there is accountability, there is transparency, and there is regard for the rule of law. And we need to see that. You see, if I have worked for civil societies in Europe, let's say for example, there is this democracy odyssey, the citizen assembly. You go to even they don't even give you transport report, but your input on how the next policy in EU its influence is what they look at. Well, in the Gambia, we in fact complain that the transport reform is little or is not there, as if it's money that you see. Certain things are must be driven by passion. The moment it's money driven, its purpose becomes defeated, and then that is what is injected into our civil
You
society
must be
space today.
passionate
Comrade
about
Madi may
cause,
agree
you
with me,
know.
and who understand this issue very well may throw shade on it. And then civil society must understand that if there is anything they need to do, is to ensure that collectively, at individually, at organizational level, we help government account. But today, it's people that
Yeah,
paint
they come
themselves civil
together.
society that sit on the fence. And then one dangerous thing about civil society that I would find it very difficult that civil society can drive any change if you come to accountability and corruption. Said, you see, the cutters that paint themselves as civil society, that we are in the civil society, and now people see them as civil society. I mean, people see them, if they call their name, they will say civil society are the ones that are sitting on the fence now. They don't want to be here, they don't want to be there. And then that's what kills civil society. People must either be with the people or with the corrupt, but they cannot be on the fence, especially if you carry
Yeah,
the heart of a
I,
civil society.
I,
Because civil society
I agree with you. And then,
ensures
mhm, mhm.
that civil society is the blood, is the engine that drives the
Absolutely,
voices. I don't know. I'm
Saibo,
breaking. I think
Adi,
I'm breaking.
before
Yes.
we wrap. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
You can hear me now, Mr. Kamal.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you from my.
You gonna hear me, Sani?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. I can hear you, Saibo. I can. Yes, I can hear you very well. Go ahead.
Yes. So I was saying. So the purpose of civil society, and that's why every civil society organization we run to say we are
Uh-huh.
non-partisan, because at the end of the day, you sit between the citizens and the authority. Sit there, you carry those voices. And then that's why advocacy is in two forms. And you have both the confrontational and that of the constructive. And then the constructive is between you and the people. Most often, you go to the people, you have a project, you go to Boraba, you go to Pakistan, listen to them, listen to their plight, and now you carry that plight to the authorities. You carry those suffering to the authorities. You carry those beliefs to the authorities because you become the referee. And that's why you don't have a farmer from Bashe randomly observing elections. You have a civil society observing elections because technically you become the referee between the authority and the citizens.
Right.
And therefore, the kind of voice you carry is fundamental. And then accountability is on top of that. But also, you see, and saying most of the time I keep saying it, accountability must start within itself as well. Even in the civil society,
Yeah.
there is serious cleansing
Yeah.
that need to happen
Yeah.
there. There needs to
Yeah,
be
even
cleaning,
Omar,
there need to be serious
even in
accountability
our
measures.
households, even in our households, accountability must start in our households, because if you as a father you are not accountable to your kids, what does that breed? That can breed corruption. So accountability must start at our homes, markets, schools, local government, central government. So if everyone is held accountable, that way people can fight corruption effectively. But I will move to Ongul Madi, then come back to you and then close the show, Omar. Mr. Madi, what role do you see for the international community, including organizations like the African Union, Transparency International, supporting Gambia's anti-corruption agenda? Because you have been in touch with a lot of international organizations, your partners, and then the protest has gone international, because I've seen a couple of international media houses picking up the story and highlighting it to their global audience. What role do you see them playing going forward, Madi Jobate?
Seni, I have a very critical view of the international community. But they have a huge role to play. If you notice, in 2016, the international community played a huge role in removing Jame after our vote, from ECOWAS to AU to the United Nations, but also to
Are you there,
influence.
Mr.? Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, and also countries like, from Senegal all the way, West African countries, as well as countries in Europe and America and so on. And then international organizations, apart from the UN, but Commonwealth,
Yeah.
all of these organizations, international human rights organizations, all played a huge part. And we have seen since 2017 how much they all are investing in our transitional justice process, whether it's security sector reforms or, in terms of TRRC, the Janet Commission reparations, and so on. So constitution building. So this Israel community has provided huge support, and it is in their interest, therefore, to see to it that the Gambia government upholds the terms of the agreements, the relationships that they have built, since 2017, to ensure that Gambia transitions from dictatorship to democracy and establishes a proper democratic governance system. um, in all these protests and in the statements that we release as Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, we make sure we provide information to the international community. We have submitted letters to them to let them know what is happening in the country. Otherwise, what they would become is to the enablers of the corruption and the abuse of office, and therefore the terrible situation that is in this country. And I don't think the international community, whether international organizations or foreign governments, should allow their resources and time, all right, to be wasted by a corrupt government. They have a responsibility to make sure they hold this government to account, to deliver on the promise and the agreements that they have made. So far, I think the international community is not playing its role as effectively as it is, because we have seen how this government has stifled the transitional justice process by killing a constitution building process, undermining, weakening, and derailing the transitional justice process, the civil service reforms, and above all, maintaining a culture of abuse and impunity in this country, particularly in terms of corruption. So the international community should be called out that they have an equal responsibility to monitor this government and to put pressure on this government that they act according to the law and according to the standards of democracy and according to the terms of relationships and agreements that they have made with the government.
Absolutely. Madi Jobate, many thanks for that. Can you hear me, Madi?
I can hear you.
Mr. Jobate, can you hear us?
Absolutely. I can hear you. I think there is a delay in the audio, but I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Finally, in transmission, yeah. Finally, before I let two of you gentlemen take a leave of us, this is going to be a joint question for all of us to answer. Any of you go first, Omar. A lot of people are saying the demands that you put forward to government institutions and to President are not new. And your team also came up with an ultimatum of 90 days. What will be Gala's next step in case this demand that you submitted are not met by the institutions that were petitioned? And also bring us to speed about this 5 petition that you present to various institutions at the Gala protest. What are these petitions for and we intend to achieve at the end of the day? What is the next move for Gala and partners to ensure
All right,
these demands properly
Thank you
taken
very
care
much,
of by the government.
Sedi. Yes, thank you very much, Sedi. I keep telling people that there's always a new thing that starts. So for now, the first ever movement to have forced government to respond have been Gala. So hopefully they'll respond again. They have responded to few of our demands, or almost all of them, even though some of them are not satisfactory. During our first protest, we demanded the president to address the nation. He did. We demanded for a list. He did. We demanded for investigate. So for us, going
Yeah,
by history, we expect
yeah.
that the government is going to is going to respond again. But if otherwise they refuse to respond, we will continue now not to just to demand for our petitions, but to demand for their response
Hmm.
as well. Because at the end of the day, a responsive government
Resignation. Wow.
is what runs a state.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. So a silenced nation against the demands and then the voices and then the wish of the Gambian people is a dead government. So I'm not sure that they want to be categorized under that terminology, a dead government. So we expect them to bring, but also
Mhm.
they need to know that Ghana is not any other random movement. Because also,
Yeah.
if they don't come out, remember our first protest, people came out, but this protest was massive. More people came out this time around. So they may expect
Yeah.
across this country the next time they refuse to respond to us. Say, on the petitions, first we have petitioned the National Assembly, the clerk of the National Assembly. If you
Okay.
recall, in September, I think it's September 12th, if my mind can serve me well, Madi can rectify me. I myself, Madi, and Babukar Nyang wrote a petition to the National
Mhm.
Assembly of the Gambia to investigate into the illegal land allocations from 2017 January to 2023 December. Until today, maybe
Yeah.
Madi can rectify me. We have not received any response. So Gala have made a follow up to that petition. One of our petitions is a follow up to that petition to ensure that the
Okay.
clerk of the National Assembly act on to ensure that that list and is out and then the investigation into those land allocations are done. Second, um, saying in this
Mhm.
country, I know corruption is a religion, and I know bribery is a daily acceptable act. But I never knew that
Mhm.
bribery could be turned to making people millionaires in this country. If you read the National Assembly joint report on the oil scandal,
Mhm.
it's not just shameful but unthinkable that somebody in this country can be bribed an amount of 500,000 plus
The
every
Russian oil
month
scandal. Yes.
of acts. Exactly. So we have written to the office of the president, directly addressed to the president, that he cannot continue to take excuses for corruption. Individual mentioned in the report, recommendation made must be acted upon within 90 days. We have written to the office of the president, directly to the president, that since 2022, out of negligence, lack of service, effective service delivery, over 60 to 70 children, innocent children, lost their life in this country until the recent report published by the National Human Rights Commission are still addressing the president and the government to listen and have a conversation with the victims because they need justice for their children because they did not die out of God's will. They die out of negligence, bad leadership, and then
Mhm.
whatsoever you will call it. And then the GFF in this country,
The
the highest
football.
league,
Mhm.
the football, saying it, the highest league in this country, a player in our highest league cannot even have a salary of 3,000 per month, cannot even feed himself out of the ball he kicks in our first league competition in the 21st century.
Hmm.
In 2000, in 2025, that is not lack of resources, that is lack of leadership. And we have written to the leadership of the Football Federation to ensure that they don't only deliver effective services in the football fraternity, but also investigate all the allegations that have been levied around them. So this collectively say is what we are called for. But to conclude, my final words is that corruption is not just a political issue. Corruption is a human rights issue, like Mary will always say, that deprives citizens from dignity, service, and opportunity. And Gala
Hearing you.
stand up not just against corruption, but also for justice and accountability, for a future where public officials serve the people, not their individual and selfish interests. And then this is a collective call to a collective action that if Gambians continue to accept and then become apology to the state, then the Gambia is done, as the first president of Singapore said in one of his quotes. If you remember, he said this, that will Singapore be around in 100 years? I'm not too sure, but absolutely that if Singapore is get a dumb government, we are done. That we will never get to that 100 years. And the same thing with the Gambia. For 60 years,
They will not
we
have
have been
reached
poor.
where they
If
are
we
today.
have exactly
Exactly.
for the same thing with the Gambia, for 60 years we are poor, Seni. For the next 60 years, if we continue to be poor, then we need to sacrifice this country.
Absolutely. Many. Mhm. Okay. Okay. Many thanks, Mr. Omar Kamara, the spokesperson for Gala, for joining this important conversation today. Mr. Madi, many thanks to you too. My final questions, just in 1 minute, before we round, we are like 1 hour, 26 minutes into this, so it's just getting interesting because when you have two well-versed and knowledgeable people in right issues, it's always interesting to have those kind of conversation. Mr. Jobat and Mr. Kamara, what give you hope about the future of anti-corruption efforts in Gambia? Are there any stories or immigrants that inspire both of you to keep this fight going on? Because we have seen that this is an area that a lot of people don't want to involve themselves because you touch on very uncomfortable area. You touch a lot of comfort zones. A lot of prominent people are corrupt. They don't want people to talk about it. What inspires both of you and the future ahead for anti-corruption efforts in the country? Mr. Madi first.
Yeah, I should go first, because for all of us, it's Omar who inspires us. So we are so happy to be here with him.
He's a great guy.
So for the first time, I'm like, okay. I mean, I think now I will feel satisfied. We have someone we can trust and depend on. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, it is about what is the essence of being a human being and being a citizen and being a patriot and being someone who claims to have faith. If you uphold these things, you realize that if you are a human being, you are not complete until you believe in justice and equality and freedom for yourself and for the rest of
Right.
society. Yes, if you are a citizen, it is your right and your duty to ensure that justice and freedom and equality prevail. All right. If you believe, say you have faith, you believe in a higher being, the essence of faith is justice, is freedom, is equality. All right. So for me, these are what motivate me. That my humanity, sense of humanity, is such that I don't want to be in any relationship. I don't want to be in any space where there is injustice, where there is discrimination. So I cannot see myself doing anything else, really, other than that. So that even if you throw me in the middle of the ocean to live with the fishes, I will make sure in this space there is justice. And if there is no justice, I will speak about it. My soul, my being will not be comfortable to see injustice, and I ignore it. So for me, it's as simple as that.
I agree.
Yes. Thank you.
I agree. Mr. Omar, finally, before I understand Ongul Madi had a very, Ongul Madi always have a lot of interviews in a day. In the morning, I saw him with Mustafa Kedabo of the Republic breaking it down, and here he is with MK again. So Uncle Madi is always
You know,
on one interview to another. When I saw you in the morning, I saw,
uh-huh. I tell, I tell, you know, unbelievable, you know. Yes, yes.
Yes, go ahead, Omar. Thank you, Uncle Madi, for that.
Uh, the, uh, thank you very much, Sedi. Is in itself an inspiration for Uncle Mari to say his life is inspiration for me. Of course, it's us that he taught to
I'm telling
be
you, that's why
that
I'm
young people
smiling.
to follow that footstep. I have been looking up to Uncle Madi. I have been listening to Uncle Madi, and one of the
It's
things that
good.
make me believe that that space is safe is that. But said I will just say what Uncle Madi said and then conclude in 1 minute that um, what makes me stay in this field because I hate injustice. I hate inequality. Because for me, it's not just government. Not long ago, I'll give you a scenario. Not long ago, I was moving with this guy to Senegambia, and we stood at turntable, and a car came. This fare was supposed to be $13, I think, but he said $20. And then I said, I'm not going to enter. And then the boy told, I said, boy, come on, it's for $20 will be able. I said, this is not about me. This is about equality in the society. What about if somebody was standing next to me that doesn't have $20, who came with $13 because that's the normal fare? Now, if I enter that car, I deprive her. If nobody enters, the car will either go and then reduce the fare down. But if one person enters, you perpetuate injustice and inequality. And he was surprised. And then for me, it's for the betterment of this country. One thing that will guide us is our collective activism. Our collective voices must be anchored on the principles of justice and equality for all. Because at the end of the day, it's either directly or indirectly, we are all affected by the injustice, inequality, lack of leadership, in the lack of integrity, and whatsoever. Because if you are a millionaire and you live in a society with an abject poor person, it affects your life because your children and their children may meet somewhere someday and something happens. So at the end of the day, saying what keeps me going is this country can make it. This country did not lack the resources, did not lack the human being, only lacks the leadership, only lacks the fact that governments are very contented to little things, to nothing that happens to them. That we cannot, even if we fence this country, that rain doesn't touch us as a development. Every day we must look at somewhere and say, but this way, because at the end of the day, we don't want our leaders to be too comfortable with the little they do. So say I speak up
Yeah,
because
right.
the farmer
Mhm.
in buses, groundnut cannot be sold. I speak up because the gardener in Bansang cannot even have a storage for his
So, mhm.
potato or tomato or whatsoever. I I speak up because as we speak, somebody may be dying at as well fancy small hospital because there is lack of medicine. I speak because somebody goes to school every day but cannot get educated, not because it's their fault. I speak up because I have seen nations develop out of clear concept and action, and the same thing must happen in the government. Thank you.
Corruption. Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for those joining us. We will draw the curtain here. So this is an edition of the final take with me, Seni Maren. Many thanks to these two gentlemen, Mr. Madi Jobate, the executive director of the Banjul-based Edward Francis Small Scale Enterprise Limited, Center for Right and Justice, and also Mr. Umar, the spokesperson of the Gambians Against Looted Assets. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining the final take, and do have a wonderful evening. Many thanks once again.
Thank you, Siri. Thank you.
Tune into the final take with MK Mariner every Saturday on the Alcamba Times and experience extensive conversations on a variety of topics, including national and international headlines, breaking issues, and major developments in politics, business, innovation, science, and sports, along with inspiring stories and expert analysis to provide a comprehensive understanding of the news.